Hi, welcome back. In the previous tutorial, we have learned about single-dimensional arrays. A single-dimensional array stores a list of elements. But at times, we need to store data in the form of a table and not as a list. In such case, we can use two-dimensional arrays. Let us learn about two-dimensional arrays. The general form of two-dimensional array declaration is type followed by array name followed by m and n. Here, type is a valid C data type and array name is a valid C identifier. And m and n is the size of the array. A two-dimensional array A, mn can be considered as a table which has m number of rows and n number of columns. For example, a two-dimensional array which is declared as int a23 can be considered as a table which has 2 rows and 3 columns. Every element in the array A is identified by an element name of the form aij, where A is the name of the array and combination of I and j are the subscripts that uniquely identify each element in A. The total number of elements in a two-dimensional array will be I cross j. Thus, the element that corresponds to 0th row and 0th column is represented as A00, and the element that corresponds to first row and first column is represented as A11, and so on. In the previous example, we have declared an array int A23. Now, let's understand how we can initialize it. To initialize this array, we specify bracketed values for each row. So 368 would be the elements of the 0th row and 934 would be the elements of the first row. The nested braces, which indicate the intended row, are optional. Thus, the statement without nested braces is equivalent to the statement with nested braces and can be used for array initialization. We have initialized the array A. Now, let's understand how we can read and display the elements of this array. We can use a nested loop to read and display the elements of this array. The outer loop processes the rows and the inner loop processes the columns. Here, the number of rows is 2. So we run the outer loop for 2 times, that is from 0 to 1. For each row, the number of columns to be processed is 3. So we run the inner loop for 3 times, that is for 0 to 2. Let's execute this code in the editor. In the output, we get two-dimensional arrays with the given elements. We have displayed the two-dimensional array on the screen. Now, suppose we wish to calculate the sum of the elements of each row of this array. This means we need a program which first reads all the columns of the first row and then prints its sum. Next, it reads all the columns of second row and prints its sum. Let's go back to the code and modify it to get the sum of the rows in the output. We add one more variable to store the sum and initialize it with value 0. Next, we add a statement. Sum is equal to sum plus aij. This means once for each row, all the columns are processed, the sum of the elements of the row will be calculated. Next, we add print statement to print the sum and then we initialize the variable sum with the value 0 again before the loop starts its next iteration. When we execute the code and enter the elements, we get the sum of each row on the screen. In similar manner, we can calculate the sum of each column. Here, we need to process all rows for each column. Thus, in this case, we use outer loop for columns and inner loop for rows. Rest of the code to calculate sum and to print sum is same as that of the code we have used to find the row sum. When we execute the code, we get the sum of each column on the screen. That's it in this tutorial. So now is the time for you to take the quiz and code challenge. All the best.